Well, hello there. It's another day. I'm Jim Harrington.
And I am Bill Knight. Well, we took a long weekend. I was going to say happy Monday, but it's Tuesday because we took Monday off because we knew from the long weekend it was just going to be a regurgitation of the same old, same old, same old.
Yeah, we actually kind of planned this because you got to take some time to just walk away from it for a while, folks. You know what it's all about. It's like anything else. You do too much of it, and it starts to, it gets to be a bit much. So Bill and I decided, hey, 4th of July weekend, watch some fireworks, have some hot dogs or whatever, right? And just kind of chill, which is what we did, you know.
Yeah, pretty much is what we did.
But boy, the news didn't stand still. Now, the good news is we were concerned about the 4th of July celebrations and terrorist attacks and stuff like that. That didn't happen.
Actually, there was an attack, Jim. An attack on our patients, an attack on the news in a way that, I wouldn't have believed would happen, because we're being lied to. I mean, the CIA is quietly admitting out there, we lied about the Kennedy assassination and all of that stuff. They're admitting now because it's obvious that they lied. Well, what else have they lied about? And, we change presidents or the presidency every 4 years. Sometimes you get 2 terms, but we change it. We're the only one that rotates our leaders. So I sit there and I wonder, who's really in charge of the show?
Well, this goes to what you and I have talked about for a long, long time. It's that deep state. It's the group of people. It's the strata, the level in Washington that doesn't change. That's been there for 20, 30, sometimes 40 years in Washington. They know the presidents come and go. They're almost like an annoyance to these people. We got a Democrat. Well, we can deal with that. Yeah. How malleable is he? Well, he's a bit malleable, and he's got some weak points. We can maneuver around this guy. I really think that's the way that level of people in D.C. work. In
your first term, you do something. Whatever it is you say you're going to do, that's your chance to do something. After that, you're a lame duck, and they're working on the next. So in other words, what I'm saying it's a dance. It's a distraction dance, the presidency, from who really runs the country.
No, you're right. I agree 100%. And look at already now, they're talking about, the midterms could change everything. Right now, Trump has this pressure on Trump and pressure on his supporters. Like, he only had like 2 years to make this all work, and now it's like a year and a half, and they're already talking about what's going to happen in the midterms and how things may change, and the last 2 terms of his presidency might be marred by investigation. I mean, they're already threatening.
Well, let me ask you a question. Yeah, they're threatening, but the Democrats, they have whipped up these flames, the flames of hate and distrust and lies, because they're like the flood they're lying about. They've lied about a lot of things. Not that Republicans haven't lied either, but they've lied about a lot of things to where now, I had spotted this about 2 weeks ago, actually more than that people that I watch, that I sit there and I see them talking on the left, and I saw this hate and just, I'm going to kick some ass, temperament going. And now they're coming out, the leaders going, oh, this is not good. Our party wants blood. They want violence.
There was you heard, maybe you didn't hear about it, Bill, but there was a letter or an article written, I forgot, maybe it was Axios, where they said it's time for people on our side to take a bullet. Be prepared to get shot for the cause, meaning be prepared. Go out there and rabble-rouse, and if you get shot, well, that's a good thing. They're talking about their own side. I'm thinking these people are nuts. These people are nuts. They're actually going out and encouraging people to cross the line to a point where they may actually get shot.
Look, I saw a lefty, someone that I thought, pretty good person, but, they're a lefty, and I'm sitting there going, well, it's their opinion. And they commented on somebody else's thread that, I like the person. I'm just sitting there going, don't agree with everything. But they're going, oh, these people want trouble. I'm summarizing here, but basically sat there and said, we got guns too, and we're not afraid to use them. They better be careful what they wish for, meaning that us Republicans or conservatives better watch out. Democrats are going to kick our ass. And I'm like going, okay, it has gone beyond just, you have your opinion, I have my opinion. And that hate and the lies that have been spewed out there that have divided everybody have got us to a boiling point that I don't know how you turn down the heat. Because once that hate, that taste, blood's in your, it's like an animal. If you have a dog, that's been trained to protect, but once it draws blood,
Well,
it's a problem.
we have a situation now where everything that is we see has a side to it. It's like you can't get away from politics. For example, there's a brand new Superman movie. Like, we don't have enough.
Mr. Woke out there, yeah.
We don't have enough Superman movies already, right? But there's a new Superman movie, and one of the actors in it, who's also the brother of the director, and I'm not going to play the cut because it's annoying to hear the interview, because the interview is being done by a sycophant. Oh, I'm so excited to be here interviewing one of the people in the movie. It's just drives you nuts. But the thing is, he says, if you're not on the side of the immigrants, then you're not American. This is the actor. If you're not on the side of the immigrants, Superman was an immigrant. This is what...
No, Superman was an alien from outer space.
Superman was a character in fiction.
Yeah.
Okay? Let's be honest.
Yeah, but he was an alien from outer space. But
Bill,
and he's a fictional person.
But let me just say one thing. This movie, he says, it's pro-immigrant, meaning it's political. Might I suggest saving $12 or whatever it costs nowadays, just put it in your pocket, save it for a real good movie, and go rent Superman from 1978 with Christopher Reeves. It'll do everything you want. It's a good movie, and it's the same story.
Might I say that a lot of people that make it to stardom are a tad touched. They probably weren't popular in school, this and that, but they found out they could sit there and deliver a line and get in costume and pretend and be something that they are not. But they have these distorted takes on life, and they think that they got a bully platform now, that because they were, catapulted into, a showcase spot in life, that what they have to say is valuable words. Might I suggest to Hollywood, go ahead and do what you hate and get rid of all the actors and just get AI to go ahead and animate the characters, get rid of all the actors.
Yeah.
Let's do that.
Bill, it's going to happen.
Let's just take it on down the line. That way there is, these AIs, forget about political opinion.
It's going to happen.
Get rid of their jobs.
It's going to happen. People, they don't realize it yet. What do you mean? Actors are going, oh, come on. Well, let me just tell you. We said the same thing. I say we said because I spent my career in broadcasting.
It's done.
We said, they're always going to need announcers. They're always going to need talent. Well, with every day in every way in broadcasting, it keeps changing. It keeps the role of the announcer and the disc jockey is diminished almost on a daily basis, because the people who count the beans, the bean counters in broadcasting, the annoying bean counters. First it was, we got to cut back so we can make a little more profit. Now it's like they're greedy. It's like they realize, hey, you mean we don't have to pay for any talent at all if we get this AI? If we get this AI that sounds like the best announcer we ever had, if we get this AI to come on and do the midday program, we'll just do it middays. That's how they start. We'll just do it middays. Well, the midday numbers weren't bad, so let's try it afternoon drive. We don't need afternoon drive anymore. We'll cut back a lot of money. Before you know it, the whole station is going to be automated, and it'll be done with a computer, AI.
Well, that's because consultants came into the business. These guys that came in there And they said, well, you know what? If you follow this formula and do this, well, yeah, but we got a guy that's a real personality. Forget about personality, because if something happens to him or he goes to the competition or he costs too much money, guess what? You're going to have to replace him and you're not going to be able to find him. But if you go and follow this little, you know, cut and paste formula, you're going to be gold. They killed the industry. So, you know what? It is fine being automated because the bean counters sat there and wanted to save a buck. They killed the industry.
Now,
And they're killing that industry.
if you're
So
saying,
go ahead and hurry it along.
how can this happen in movies? I mean, in movies we see the actors, we see them emote on screen. Right now, let me give you an example. I saw the movie Call of the Wild, the most recent version. It was, Jack London's classic book, and it was set in snow-swept, rugged Alaska, right? Beautiful country. Except it wasn't. Except it was shot in a large soundstage in Los Angeles. You walk into this building, and they had a minimal set, for example, and behind it you'd see green screen. Everything was, you say, what is green screen? Just imagine the walls and everything being painted green. The computers then take that color, remove it from the image, and they insert snow or mountains. I mean, it is so sophisticated nowadays that I swear to God, folks, you would have thought they shot this in the Yukon territory, right? Nope, not at all. That's an example. Almost every movie you see nowadays has some element of computerization in it.
Yeah.
And that's going to happen with the actors, if it hasn't already. Many times for Avatar, in the movie Avatar,
Great movie.
yeah, but those characters, they don't exist. They didn't put costumes on them. They were all computer enhanced.
And think how old that movie is. They had that back then. There was a big multi-million-dollar budget.
They had the
But it was
process.
a big success. Yeah.
They had the process, Bill, back in the 90s. In the late 80s, they had computerization.
Well,
but with the growth and the sophistication of computers, it's only gotten better.
yeah, there's going to be mistakes in movies. I mean, I see mistakes in scripts all the time. And even with AI, it makes mistakes because stupid people input the information. And it's simple as that. Because I work with a lot of AI, and sometimes I'm going like, yeah, that's great. It's July 2025. You just gave me an events list that is dated for March and June. Oh, sorry for my mistake. AI makes the same mistakes because it was stupid idiots that put the information in there to begin with.
Sometimes it'll create a picture, and the character will have 6 fingers.
Yeah.
It's like, what? Oops, sorry about that.
Oh, it was like I was looking for something stupid to watch, so I went back to the Purge, and they did the Purge, the final Purge, or something like that. That was a 2018 or 2021, whatever it was. Which was really woke, like the United States, had to immigrate. They had to become immigrants in Mexico and Canada. Enough of that. But either way, they're down in Texas where everything, all hell breaks loose, and they're trying to escape to get to Mexico. And as they're escaping, now I kind of know this because I live in, have a place in Northeast Pennsylvania. They come driving into, and I see the sign, the Electric City, which is Scranton, Pennsylvania. But then all of a sudden,
actually, I've heard it's connected in New York. They'd probably have a battle over that.
Yeah, they probably do, but they're up in the Northeast.
Yeah.
That would have meant they were going to Canada instead of Mexico, but they were just, basically just, like 20 or 30 miles from the Mexican border.
Yeah.
Last time I checked, and I lived in the Southwest before too, there's no Electric City down there.
No.
And that sign was a very unique sign. So whether it's an AI or a scripting or somebody didn't have their geography right, but these mistakes happen. So I'm just saying, you know what? Screw it. Get rid of everybody. Just
I have a very hard time with all the different streaming programs and all these different options nowadays. I have a hard time finding a movie I want to watch. You know,
That's true.
it's sad. You know, I think I had more of a variety when I had ABC, CBS, and NBC and PBS back in the late '60s, early '70s. And they
Watch old classics. If you want to watch a movie, that my
that's true.
entertainment advice: go pull up the old classics because you haven't seen them all, and just get a list of them and go through it. You'll probably sit there and spend out the remaining years of your life, whether you have a lot of more years in front of you than behind you, or vice versa. You will have a cadre of things to watch
Well,
and be impressed with real acting,
yes.
real scripting, and no wokeness.
There was
It's
a time
amazing.
when Hollywood actually tried to entertain you and not to educate you. All right, but nowadays Hollywood thinks that they have an opportunity, an obligation to train you to be more liberal about your thinking. You know, so over the weekend, a lot of things did happen. The tragedy in Texas, people are just caught up in it with reason. Over 100 innocent people, including children, have been lost, and it breaks my heart because these are the innocents of our society only going to camp. I mean, think about that for a second. I can remember when I went to camp as a kid. It was so exciting, so special. I dreamt about it for weeks ahead of time, and when I went, it was just amazing. 2 weeks at summer camp, and to have something as tragic as this happen, unbelievable.
And it happened in the overnight hours, because you talk to some of the campers, all of a sudden you got this storm
Yeah.
coming, whether you're in a tent or a cabin. I used to camp when I was a kid. My parents were happy to get rid of me for 2, 3, or 4 weeks, and I'd be up in the mountains at a camp, and there was a river nearby and whatnot. Never had, thank God, any tragedies like that. And, pray for the families, pray for the kids if there's still survivors out there. The death toll is,
the tragedy today continues because the weather is for more rain, heavy rains.
and the left has taken it and they're being called out on it. This is terrible. Now, I've also seen voters say, well, Trump got exactly what he asked for when he cut that budget. Well, let me explain something to you, friends and neighbors. FEMA, they're swimming in their own problems. Texas' $68 billion disaster 20 to 2024 highlights its vulnerability, but FEMA's role is often secondary to local efforts. If you're sitting there saying that it's Trump's fault,
well, wait a second.
no.
They had so many people there to help, they were turning people away. They had all the military. They had Army, Navy, Marines, and Coast Guard. And if you look at where Kerrville is, it's in the interior part of Texas. The Coast Guard were there. Those are the guys who were hanging from the helicopters, picking people out of the river. The water rescue people, they were there. And as a matter of fact, they had more supplies and more help than they ever imagined. They didn't miss anything, so there was no drama about FEMA.
No.
It all came from the left.
Yeah, it did. And I mean, if you look at, I got a page and a half here on FEMA and all their failures that date back some 20 years. That's all I went, because they trip over their own feet, and the reductions made no difference on their lack of efficiency. They have been a problem for a long time. It was the local effort that kicked in right away, and that's always been the case. The cutting of budget in redundancies and just waste, had no impact on this, and there was no way to. Now, this is the interesting thing. This was the storm of a century, the storm of a lifetime. It was unpredictable. Nobody knew it was going to happen.
Except they forecasted it.
Yeah.
They forecasted it.
Yeah.
They told people it was coming.
Yeah.
The day before, they were saying heavy rains in the area might cause some heavy flooding. And it seems like people didn't pay attention.
Because they get complacent.
Yeah, that's true.
Did they forecast the one down in North Carolina?
They did not. As a matter of fact, a lot of people don't realize that there was a terrible flooding area in North Carolina over the weekend, and they had to rescue like 80 people from the floods.
So let me ask you this. Still, it was a pretty quick to crop up storm. They may have predicted it, but it cropped up pretty quick. Where have these storms been hitting? Blue states, red states, what states?
It's interesting you should say that, Bill. It's only happening in red states right now that I can see. So,
and as soon as the storm hits, what party comes out, blue or red, to sit there and throw criticism?
Oh, it's the blue.
I mean,
we had a doctor. She lost her job, justifiably so, who came out, and I'm paraphrasing, but she came out and said prayers for innocents and non-MAGA. But if you're MAGA, I hope you got what you deserve. She said something like that. She was a doctor.
She's going to get what she deserves in the end come Judgment Day. That's all I can say. I did some research on bias, news bias, political bias in the news. And what I found is that there's an 80-20 split. Now, 20% means it's non-biased. The 80%, it's biased. And within that 80% of biased, it's between 60 and 90% left-leaning. That's not Bill Knight saying that. Nope. As a matter of fact, that is a liberal AI that is going by the facts and just saying, yeah, well, this news is this. Now, let me tell you something, media folk. There should be no bias in the news. And if there's only 20% of unbiased news, then I would tend to say that 80% of you have no business being in the news business.
For the longest time, they denied the fact that there was any kind of cloud seeding. We used to call them chemtrails, and people would say, oh, that's just vapor from the jet airplanes. Come on. But there's a difference between vapor and a chemtrail. Vapor dissipates very quickly because it's only moisture. Whereas a chemtrail, if you watch, it'll last for, in the sky, you look up and you'll see the streak. It'll be like a line from horizon to horizon. Here's the thing. They didn't talk much about this, but they did some seeding, some cloud seeding in the area of the floods before the actual floods happened.
Now, why? Was there agricultural
Well, it's normally a very dry area.
So did they overseed and not pay attention to other conditions that might have brought in normal rain, and all of a sudden they did a boo-boo and it blew up on them?
Your guess, Bill, is as good as mine, but that would be an interesting theory. I wouldn't be surprised.
No, but it's easier. Let's just blame it on Trump. And this blame game, it's always coming from the left. Go and do your history on it. And it's not happened just for Trump. It has happened over the years, over and over and over again. And again, you can do a statistical study, and the odds of that, of a party doing that, should be nil. But it's happening all the time when you look at the news bias.
We're going to talk about some other stuff. Interesting program. We got a lot of things to talk about. But first, a reminder, if you like our show, please like and share it with your friends. Hey, share it with anybody you know, even if they're not a friend. Share our program. And also, if you want to contact us, it's mail@jimandbill.com.
Wake up on the right side with Right Side Coffee.
Available at rightsideshop.com. We started the program off by saying that there's a deep state out there, we think, and they have a lot more power than a lot of people give them credit for. And they look at presidencies like they're a bump in the road, an interference, an annoyance of sorts.
Well, let me ask you a question.
Let me just... Okay. So the deep state's out there, and we're at a point now where... well, we're not halfway through. We're over 6 months into his first term. It seems like he's halfway through, but it's only like 6 months. But already, we're seeing some very disturbing stuff happening. Let me give you a case in point. The Epstein files, the Epstein case, Jeffrey Epstein. we were told time and time again that Stand By America, it's going to be a blockbuster expose. As a matter of fact, listen to this.
The DOJ may be releasing the list of Jeffrey Epstein's clients. Will that really happen?
It's sitting on my desk right now to review. That's been a directive by President Trump. I'm reviewing that. I'm reviewing JFK files, MLK files. That's all in the process of being reviewed because that was done at the directive of the president from all of these agencies.
So have you seen anything that you said, oh my gosh?
Not yet.
Okay. Well, we'll check back with you.
That was Pam Bondi, the Attorney General, who I'm very disappointed in. I got to tell you, I'm being very upfront. Maybe I'm being premature in my judgment. I hope that I'm wrong, and I hope there's a reason for it. But I had a lot of hope in her. I thought she was going to come out and be a dramatic, make a difference Attorney General. But instead, I'm getting that she's more like a Jeff Sessions type of Attorney General. A lot of talk and no action. And maybe there's reasons for that. And also Kash Patel, Bill. Kash Patel, I remember watching him on all these different podcasts and stuff, and he was going to expose everything. And it's all going to happen within the first 30 days in office, and it was going to be a changed, different FBI if he ever got the reins. Well, I'm afraid that's not the case. And by the way, Dan Bongino has lost, well, maybe he hasn't lost it.
Too.
A lot of it, Bill. A lot of his credibility. If he wants to go back into the private sector and do radio again, he's going to have a hard time.
Yeah, the thing that I got to believe, because not just focusing on this, but in the past too. I mean, you think about it. You had Jimmy Carter coming into to the White House. I'm going to find out about these UFOs. I'm going to release everything. Nothing happened.
Yep.
Ronald Reagan was going to do it. Nothing happened. Bush, you had, Bill Clinton. He was going to do it. Nothing happened. And we're going to do it now. Nothing's happening. and so, but we know there's something amiss.
Yeah.
People see something, but the thing that's amiss is there's something that they either think that we can't handle the truth or they don't want us to know.
Well,
now, which one is it, or is it a little bit of both? And does that mean somebody gets elected president? Yeah,
the same day, the same day they tell you that there's nothing to see here in the Epstein file, they release a video. The Department of Justice releases a video, and over a minute of the video is just gone. It's disappeared. John Kiriko is a former CIA employee, I guess agent, and he was on with Jesse Waters yesterday. Listen to what he said about the Epstein files.
I'm not blaming the FBI director, Kash Patel, or the deputy director, Dan Bongino. I think that layer beneath them, that's part of what we like to call the deep state, has taken this bull by the horns, and they've probably destroyed information. Look at what the CIA did in 1975 after Congress ordered that it release all of its files related to an operation called MK Ultra. The director of the CIA went back to headquarters and ordered everything to be destroyed. And in the end, only about 20% of the documents survived. We're still learning about the FBI's operations against Martin Luther King 55 years after the fact. So now we're supposed to believe that everybody's telling the truth, that there were no files, there were no dossiers. I'm sorry, I just don't buy it because I know how these people operate.
That's a former CIA agent, a guy who worked at the CIA. Bill, I mean, there's no consequence. Do you know that George Herbert Walker Bush was, I think he was the director of the CIA back in the 60s. And they say that he had a lot more knowledge about the Kennedy assassination than people believe. Well,
I'm going to do a little walk through the woods here on a windy path, but, going back to, people talking about the Epstein things, well, there's a cover-up and somebody important there was there, and let's just say it's not Biden. Well, wait a minute. You know what? You might want to hold your beer on that one, because Here's what I'm looking at. Presidents that have gotten in that really didn't have inside Washington worker knowledge. All right? Trump, for instance, first time around, he really, he was the outsider, and he remained the outsider. So he really doesn't have the knowledge of the inner workings. And he came in, and all of a sudden, now he's getting a real dose of the inner workings. Now, you look at other people like, Biden. No, Biden's been a part of government all his life. He's in that D.C. crowd. And so, and hold that thought there. There was Hillary. Hillary has been in that D.C. crowd, which makes kind of Clinton a part of that too. They probably are in bed with the deep state. I'm saying that I don't think Biden won the election. I'll go to my grave believing that. I believe that he was put in place, but maybe he was put in place for a reason. Maybe he was put in place to make things disappear.
Maybe. I don't think Biden.
Don't know.
I don't think he made anything disappear. I think he was completely in a fog for the 4 years.
But people in
the people who
his
rang
universe?
the auto pen and stuff like that. Yeah, they made the decisions. I think that guys like Obama were making decisions. He said, and I haven't got the audio, but you probably have heard it, where he said that he had like nothing more than to wake up and get into his sweats and in his basement and make all the important decisions from his basement into an earpiece in the presidency and not have to go do all the formal stuff.
But the telltale came from Chuck Schumer when he talked about basically the deep state, the CIA. They can get you 6 ways from Sunday as a warning to Trump. Basically there's a force more powerful than you.
Well, let me give you another thing that makes you go, First of all, we just talked about the Epstein stuff. I'm sorry. You can't convince me that there's nothing there. They're trying to tell you that there was no black book, no list of clients. That's nonsense. That's bull. I mean, he had... And you can see it if you go to Gateway Pundit today and go on to their website. You can see a story from James O'Keefe. He goes to Epstein Island, and there was a book next to his bed that had a list of telephone numbers for quick dials and stuff of important people. I mean, that by itself is a black book. It may not be black. It may have been something different, but he had stuff. So we're being lied to, but just to give you an idea of what's going on and making you shake your head. A week ago, President Trump said we're going to stop with the weapons to Ukraine because our own supply is running out. Listen to what he said last night at a dinner with Netanyahu. Listen.
Mr. President, are you planning to send more weapons to Ukraine?
We're going to send some more weapons. We have to. They have to be able to defend themselves. They're getting hit very hard now. They're getting hit very hard. We're going to have to send more weapons. Defensive weapons primarily, but they're getting hit very, very hard.
Okay, wait a second, Mr. President. They have to be able to defend themselves. How about us? If our supply is shrinking to a point where the Pentagon is saying, hey, guys, you might want to slow down with the weapons to the Ukraine because our stockpiles are running out, and we didn't in a week build those supplies up. I mean, I'm sure right now they're probably saying, well, maybe we can send them stuff from the guard units or something like that, or maybe we have secondary stuff that they do throw old weapons out. I mean, they destroy. Maybe they're sending a lot of the older stuff. I don't know.
Well, I don't know, but I'm sitting there looking at this. Putin has been going after the Ukraine for a long time. There's a reason to his madness. What is that reason? Now, we've talked about it before on the show that there may be labs in the Ukraine that we have our signature on that maybe we need to protect because there's something there that we don't want the world to know about, or there's something there that if it gets hit, it could be devastating
That's
the
a
world.
very good point. But also, Putin has been quite open about why he's one of the big reasons he's into the Ukraine is the Nazis. You're saying what?
Yes.
Who? The what? Nazis? The Azov battalion in the Ukraine is a direct descendant of the Nazi Party. And Hitler, he was very aware of the Ukrainian SS. That's them. And they haven't disappeared. They've been there. And Putin has said, no, they're not going to exist anymore. That's something that we're getting rid of. Because if you don't know history, by the way, if you don't know history, the Germans destroyed so many lives in Russia. I'm talking about millions of lives in Russia during World War II. So there's a hatred for the Nazis in Russia that will probably be generational. It'll probably go on for generations. That's how much hate there is for. So for them to think that right inside the border, so close, is an active Nazi party, no.
Yeah, well, some of the things that they did, flooding people in tunnels and whatnot, I get that. But maybe, that Azov battalion too, and you say a battalion, it's bigger than what you think a battalion is. But maybe with what's over there too, if they have their hands on it or close to it, then that is a problem.
Well, you're absolutely there are probably what we probably have is a couple of reasons why the war continues. Why we were ever over in the Ukraine developing all these poisons and gases and viruses is beyond me. But
you know why?
Because it was,
we could.
If they had an accident, Bill, it wouldn't. They could hide it. They could hide it in the Ukraine. They couldn't hide it if it was in Omaha.
Yeah. That's right, and there are treaties against it. But if it's over there, we could sit there and wash our hands of it and pretend like we had nothing to do with it. There is a big snake pit over there that is going to go back generations because that didn't crop up during the Trump administration. That cropped up a long time ago. We've been there doing stuff, and and that might be the seed of the problem here. Is that the deep state doesn't want you to know what they're up to and what they're doing.
So the next question is, how much longer is this war going to continue? I mean, Trump is talking about peace, but you can't, on one hand, say we've got to have peace, and then the other hand, be sending more weapons for the war. Maybe you can't. Maybe this is Trump's idea of strength through power, Maybe he figures, look at, the only way this thing is going to end is if Russia thinks they can't win. And if Russia thinks they have an upper hand because I've just said that we're not going to send any more weapons to the Ukraine, then maybe that's just going to let it go on and on and on. Maybe he realizes he made a mistake.
To where we can hit. Yeah, I don't know.
So it'll be interesting to see where this goes. But there are a lot of things that are happening right now in Washington that make me scratch my head. They're not pro-MAGA. And by the way, they make a lot of MAGA supporters, Trump supporters, scratch their head. This is not just me. There's a lot of people who supported President Trump who are going, wait a second, why don't we have the Epstein files? Why don't we have an answer to this or answer to that? So, I mean, one of his supporters early on was Tucker Carlson. And Tucker's taken... he seems to have gone, taken a hard turn somewhere. I don't know whether he's gone left or right, but he's not going down the straight and narrow right now. He did an interview with the Iranian president, and here's how he describes it. Listen.
We just finished up an interview with Masoud Pezeshkian, who is the president of Iran, the 70-year-old heart surgeon who leads the country we were just at war with about a week and a half ago. We know we'll be criticized for doing this interview. Why did we do it anyway? Well, we did it because we were just at war with Iran 10 days ago and maybe again. And so our view, which has remained consistent over time, is that American citizens have the constitutional right and the God-given right to all the information they can gather about matters that affect them. If their country is doing something with their money in their name, they have a right, an absolute right, to know as much about it as they can. And that would include hearing from the people they're fighting. Now, can you believe everything you hear from the president of Iran? Probably not. But that's not the point. The point is you should be able to decide for yourself whether you believe it or not. And keep in mind that anyone who seeks to deny you that right is not your ally, but your enemy. By the way, we have also put in, for the third time in the last several months, an interview request with the Prime Minister of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu, and we hope he accepts that. The interview is limited by a couple of factors. One, it was done by remote through a translator. That's always awkward. For another, I don't speak Persian, and there are all kinds of questions that I didn't ask the president of Iran, particularly questions to which I knew I could not get an honest answer, such as, was your nuclear program totally disabled by the bombing campaign by the U.S. government a week and a half ago? There's no chance he's going to answer that question honestly. I didn't bother to ask it. The answer, in fact, from an American perspective, even from the CIA's perspective, is unknowable. So we dispensed with those, and I asked him very simple questions, such as, what is your goal? Do you seek war with the United States? Do you seek war with Israel? Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Again, the purpose of this was not to get to the absolute truth. That's impossible in an interview like this. The purpose of the interview was to add to the corpus of knowledge from which Americans can derive their own opinion. Learn everything you can, and then you decide. That's the promise of America. And we hope that this interview does a small part to making that promise real. This interview will be up as soon as we've done editing it, as noted, and that should be in a day or two.
That's Tucker Carlson. Now, the question is this. First of all, I mean, we live in a country where he has a right to do this. But does he honestly think he's going to have any breakthrough, information coming out of this interview with an Iranian president? It's going to be an interview of propaganda and lies. Is that a good thing, Bill?
No, I don't think it's a good thing. And I think, but you get, when you do interviews in the United States, apparently you get propaganda and lies. And you got to ask yourself why. I believe when Trump came in, first and second time, good intent. And I think he's a well-intended guy. That being said, there are things going on under his watch right now that would be contrary to that, like with the Epstein files. Was everybody lied to? Has it been manipulated by forces unknown? Or is there something there that is so deep, so dark that we can't handle?
Well, let's assume that book exists, that black book. You have to imagine that some of the biggest, most influential people in our country are in that book. I mean, that's just how Epstein worked. Well, some people say that the Israeli Mossad were actually behind Jeffrey Epstein, and they were the people who were getting him to do what he was doing and using that blackmail information against those people.
And to get money, I'm sure. But you got to wonder, Epstein was not the first. And, we're not talking about P. Diddy. He had a list, too. And he's only guilty on the...
He'll be home for Christmas. Yeah, I know.
Yeah, if
not sooner.
Or something happens to him while he's waiting to go home, because he might have a list too, because he, that was part of the thing, that he had a client list. And there have been lists. There was the Black Dahlia, the actor with that, and the guy out west that did things, and there was a lot of influence there. With everything that went on.
If you don't know that story, that was 1947. A young lady in Los Angeles who wanted to be an actress. Didn't have much success, but she was an attractive young woman. And one
Beautiful.
day, she used to socialize and go to all the parties. And one day they found her body literally sawed in half on the side of a road in Los Angeles. I mean, it wasn't like out in the woods. It was in an open field right next to the road. And they said it was cut with surgical precision. And they never found, they had speculation, but they never actually found the person who did it.
Actually, the guy was a doctor. There
Well,
was
they think he
assistant.
was, yeah.
Yeah. Well, his son,
Right.
actually.
Who I think was a cop.
Yeah, and he's basically if you look up the name or just Black Dahlia, cop, son of surgeon, they actually did a documentary, and he claims, and he pretty much claims, and it looks like he proved it.
Yeah.
But basically there was a client list that went on there and the whole 9 yards. And that was my point of bringing it up, is that this is nothing new of people extorting money from, people's whims and, people that have money, they have dalliances that they have to
Hide.
feed.
Yeah, well, they have weaknesses, and they have they have, well, like you said, Bill, they step into the dark side on occasion. Let's just say that, and this is gets them in trouble.
And you got to wonder what's going on with the Epstein. And like I said, there's the P Diddy out there. Does he walk or not? He has a list apparently. And who else is there out there?
Well,
that
do you
has
think
this list?
is Trump going to right the ship? Is he going to realize that, wait a second, we're being I'm leading my MAGA people down the wrong path here, and I'm going to straighten things out before it goes too far? Will he say to Pam Bondi, Pam, correct this, give them something?
Well, something that we haven't talked about in a long time, but since we've talked about Epstein, and Epstein Island had underage women, kids, both male and female, kids. I mean, little kids, teenagers, and it just seems that elite people that think that they are better than anybody else, they have a fetish for that. But there was another thing that was going on during the Biden administration that we quit just talking about it like a switch. And that was all the kids that were mysteriously being brought in and taken away on buses and taken off to God knows where.
They've really ignored the whole problem. I say that I think ICE is trying to help those kids. I do think ICE is out there. And this is, again, why is it that the left is so anti-ICE? Why is the left trying so hard to slow down the efforts of ICE? Just yesterday, Karen Bass, the mayor of Los Angeles, went out and tried to stop a raid. I mean, she literally went out and tried to stop an ICE raid.
And the news was tracking all the vehicles because they're watching all of that. There's something to this what's going on here, but just a side thought for just something. Maybe the Epstein list does exist, but we have to pretend it doesn't exist, because by showing that it exists, it gives away evidence of where we're going and who we're going after, and you can't know that. So now we've got to sit there and eat crow until it comes to the light of day.
So you're saying is we have to wait until the bad guys are charged and maybe even brought to trial so that their evidence can then be presented. By going out with a list right now, it might be messing up their cases.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. And what I'm saying is, you know what, like you always say, walk around with your head on a swivel. Keep an open eye. Don't forget about it. Make note of this. And let's just, somebody used to always say, give them enough rope and they'll hang themselves.
Well, do you think the weapons to Ukraine turnaround is also strategic too? Do you think that Trump did that to let Russia think that we're going to go back to giving more weapons, maybe to slow down the
what
Russian
it could do,
assault?
It could force Russia to the table, saying, okay, you know what?
Yeah.
Because Russia doesn't want a nuclear war. Because one thing, they do have an arsenal of warheads, but will they misfire? Will they not take off from the pads and make it over here? Our system is old. Minuteman 1, 2, 3, whatever generation it is, it's pretty much still the same warheads. The components in the rockets have changed, but it's still the same thing. The electronics have changed, but they still have a guy with a key that turns it and a person to the left, and they both have guns. So If your partner doesn't do it, you shoot them, so that we launch. But I'm just saying ours has been maintained. Theirs has not. And when they disbanded, there were pieces of their nuclear arsenal that went away that are in the Ukraine and over in the Azov area and over where we have those labs. So this is a quagmire of crap, and just, what we do.
Well, I know that there's a lot going on right now, folks, and I think that maybe there's a lot of political espionage being played here, and we're making maybe because we're on the outside looking in, we're jumping to conclusions, which is normal because we don't have all the information, but that's okay. Maybe we're not supposed to have it right now. You got to hope. I said it on the show. I'm disappointed in Pam Bondi, but maybe she has a long game that I'm unaware of.
Yeah. Well, I'll just say this. Al Gore didn't invent the internet, but it was an experiment. And it's an experiment that got out of hand. And now we use it. It's very vital in everyday life. But also, there are people that have a voice, even you and I, podcasts like this and others out there that are doing what we're doing today, asking a lot of questions on both sides of the fence. And now all of a sudden, this deep state that's running things or the good guys and the bad guys, they've got a lot to dance around to get whatever their objective is done, because there's you, there's me, there's the people listening, and people all have a smartphone. I mean, they're going down and they're looking. What are they looking at? Are they looking at stupid stuff, or are they researching news and doing things? A little bit of everything.
We talked about Tucker and how he's changed. He had as a guest Ted Cruz, and Ted Cruz is a big supporter of the president, and Tucker kind of went after Ted Cruz. Listen to how it went.
I'm asking about your allegation and the Prime Minister of Israel's allegation that Iran is trying to murder the president.
Killing terrorists is a good thing. Killing people who are trying to murder Americans is a good thing. Because if you're America first, you want to protect America, and so killing Osama bin Laden was a fantastic.
But you don't really believe that they're trying to murder Trump, or
yes, I do. Yes, I do.
Then why aren't you calling for military action against Iran right now?
Because they're not very effective. In terms of hitmen, their hitmen are not very effective. I do think.
So they're hitmen, but not the bad kind, the efficient kind?
No,
what are you saying?
They're a weak country who is on its knees, and I think we need to.
Then why are we so afraid of them? Why are they the biggest threat if they're a weak country that's on its knees?
Because they're trying.
I'm trying to keep track.
They're trying to develop. Be a little less snarky.
I know, you're right. That is a problem that I have. I'm sorry.
Yes, it is. And that's unusual. That kind of snarkiness there, Tucker, it hasn't been you in recent years, but all of a sudden, I think, I don't know whether it's pressure, a lack of maybe stature in the industry. I know that for in the beginning, when you went over to your internet program on X, it was a big deal. Millions of people were watching. Maybe it's harder to keep up the pace right now. I don't know. But that didn't sound like something you would have done a year and a half ago, that kind of testiness.
Let's be honest. Numbers go up and down. And when you're solo like we do, you have your sources to go to numbers. Then you have other numbers that you go, what the hell happened there? But then you have your overall big numbers. So, maybe he's falling victim to pressure. And he was making a lot of money. He was getting paid a lot of money at the network. Now he has to do it on his own, and there's a bit of ego to it.
I think he had a deal with Elon Musk on X. I think he had a money deal.
Well, there's another topic to talk about. Elon and his new party to go against MAGA and the left.
Scott Bessent, the Treasury Secretary, he had some thoughts on Elon Musk's New America Party. Listen.
Before I let you go, it's not a big secret that you had your differences with Elon Musk when he was working in the administration. He announced this weekend that he is starting a new political party. Does that worry the Trump administration?
The principles of Doge were very popular. I think if you looked at the polling, Elon was not. So I believe that the boards of directors at his various companies wanted him to come back and run those companies, which he is better at than anyone. So I imagine that those board of directors did not like this announcement yesterday and will be encouraging him to focus on his business activities, not his political activities.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Appreciate your time.
You know, what's interesting, Bill, is that he made this announcement and he lost a lot of business. There was a big financial backer who pulled out of a deal for millions and millions, maybe $1 billion. He had some kind of a contract with the Air Force that all of a sudden disappeared. So this is not a positive move. He's damn the torpedoes, full speed ahead. He's doing it. The American, he says, I've heard it called the America Party and the American Party. I think it's the America Party. So
I don't know what to think about it. I don't know where it's going to go. I know that he needs to, number one, shore up his businesses and make sure that, you know, things are sound and secure on the home front. But already he's got a problem with SpaceX, the number one place for delivering satellites. And now there's a lady that worked for him, sexual allegation charges against his SpaceX.
You know, he's been a Democrat, and the left loved him. He's been a MAGA, and the right loved him. Now he's disenchanted with that, and he wants to be a third party. Third parties historically in this country do not work. Just ask Ross Perot, if you could. He's no longer with us, but I mean, Ross Perot was maybe the most successful third party candidate, and it didn't work. It's a two-party system.
Him, but you know, he didn't look like a politician. And you know, but he tried. He tried really hard. I didn't like everything.
Well,
he did
Donald Trump look like a politician?
More so than Ross Perot. At least
I don't know. I was one of these people who was very interested. Not that I was a supporter, but I was interested in the whole concept of what he was doing. He said a lot of right things, but then again, all of a sudden he withdrew his candidacy because he said his daughter was threatened or something like there was a threat on his daughter's life or something that was out of left field. And then he tried to get back into the race again. It was amateurish, if you know what I'm talking about. So, but I don't think that the America Party has a place because look at. People didn't become supporters of President Trump because of MAGA. They were already supporters of President Trump. If you'll remember, he was the guy at a rally who started talking about make America great again. He started it after the movement was already there. So it's not like he built MAGA and then said, come on, join us. He already had people behind him. Whereas I think Elon, Bill, I don't think he has the look at. He's charming. He's a brilliant guy. He's almost genius in so many things, but he can't be president. He was born in South Africa, and I don't know whether people are going to support his. He'll get some supporters, and he will probably take those supporters from both sides.
Yeah, he'll split the parties. Now, I will tell you this: you look at 2028. Right now, the polls are, if you take both the contenders, Buttigieg and whoever else it is down there at the bottom of the top of the Democratic list, you put the Democrats together, and even with their undecideds, it brings them somewhere in the 38 to 40 percentile of America. Whereas not Trump, but J.D. Vance is over that 50%.
Yeah.
So I'm sitting there going, their only hope is 2026, and if they do get in, if they're going to spend, basically 2 years to try to impeach, they're going to have to do it slam dunk, and things it'll be tied up in court, and all we're going to do is America's been circling a drain. And it will keep circling.
Hey, we forgot to mention, but we're going to do it right now. It's time to like and share the program. Take a moment to like and share our show. Also, if you want to contact us, mail@jimandbill.com.
right side with Right Side Coffee.
Available at rightsideshop.com.
Well, here's a side kick for you.
What's that?
Netanyahu has nominated Trump for Nobel Peace Prize.
Is that a good or bad thing? Because
I don't know. I mean, this is the second nomination.
Yeah.
For the Nobel.
I like Netanyahu, but he's not liked by a lot of people in Europe.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know whether having him nominate you is a strong endorsement.
Pakistan nominated him too, and I'm sitting there going, is it a backhanded compliment in a roundabout way?
I wouldn't hold my breath, Mr. President. I
wouldn't either.
I think that the Nobel people are notorious leftists, and I think that you're going to see they're not going to change anytime soon. You've had a lot. The biggest success you've had is being voted in by 80 million people in your country. So that's a major accomplishment. As far as the Nobel Peace Prize, I don't think so. I mean, they gave it to Barack Obama after he was in office for 2 weeks. I mean, the guy didn't even take off his suit from the inauguration, and they were handing him a Nobel Peace Prize. So how valuable is it to have one of those? I don't think it's all that great. I wanted to play a couple of other things. Bono. You know who Bono is? Bono from U2?
Yeah.
Yeah. He was on the Joe Rogan show. Bono's a leftist. Doesn't do a lot of deep thinking into politics. I mean, I'm sure he thinks he does, but he doesn't really. And he was on with Joe Rogan, who used to be kind of left-leaning himself, but Joe's had a lot of time to think, and I think he's become more and more of a conservative as the days have progressed. And he had Bono on. They were talking about USAID. That's the organization that Trump is eliminating. As a matter of fact, he's moving the FBI into their headquarters building in Washington. I didn't realize this, but the J. Edgar Hoover building in Washington literally is falling apart. The concrete on the building is falling into the sidewalk, so they have to put netting up to catch the concrete. I mean, talk about poor, shoddy workmanship. That's an example right there. But the USAID building is bigger, better, more appropriate, more useful. So the FBI is going over there, and there's a lot of left-leaning people who are shaking their heads and wringing their hands out because, oh, my goodness, the USAID does some. USAID was a money laundering scheme.
Yeah, it was.
It was a way for people in Washington to make millions of dollars and to hide it. But Bono doesn't know that. He talks about all the people who were saved. He was on with Joe Rogan. Listen.
Just recent report. It's not proven, but the surveillance enough suggests 300,000 people have already died from just this cut off, this hard cut of USAID. So there's food rotting in boats, in warehouses. There is this will fuck you off. You will not be happy. No American will. But there is, I think it's 50,000 tons of food that are stored in Djibouti, South Africa, Dubai, and wait for it, Houston, Texas. And that is rotting rather than going to Gaza, rather than going to Sudan, because the people who know the codes or for the warehouse are fired. They're gone. And so this, I don't know, what do you think? What is that? That's not America, is it?
Well, they're throwing the baby out with the bathwater. Right. This is the problem. The problem is, for sure, there have been a lot of organizations that do tremendous good all throughout the world. Also, for sure, it was a money laundering operation. For sure, there was no oversight. For sure, billions of dollars are missing. In fact, trillions that are unaccounted for, that were sent off into various, they don't even know where because there's no receipts. The way Elon Musk described it, he said if any of this was done by a public company, the company would be delisted and the executives would be in prison. but in the United States, this is standard. When Biden left office, when it was clear that Trump won, in the 73 days, they spent $93 billion from the Department of Energy on just radical loans, just throwing money into places. Right. And there's no oversight, no receipts. Like the whole thing there's a lot of fraud, a lot of money laundering.
That's Joe Rogan at the end there, kind of setting the...
He did his homework.
Yeah, he did his homework. You know, the thing that gets me, you hear Bono talking about all that food sitting around just rotting away in warehouses. My question is, why don't the government send in their troops and take the food out of the warehouses? If nobody's there to distribute it, just go get it. It's there.
Well, you know, he did the caveat of saying, well, you know, there's no proof of this, but this is what I hear. You know, and we fired the people that have the codes. Well, if there are those warehouses, let's identify them. Oh, you don't have the codes? You don't know the combinations? Shoot it off. You know, torch the door open.
Yeah.
And I don't quite buy that. I'm not saying there's not food going to waste somewhere, because somebody could sit there and go, "I'll take your camera out and show you." You know, well, that's kind of like what happened with the L.A. riots that didn't happen. That was just a peaceful protest.
Yeah.
They didn't want to show you the cars burning, but then when they did, well, they got excited in their happy rally.
Yes. Yeah, right.
They were exuberant.
They
That was
carried
the word.
away.
They were exuberant.
Yes.
You know.
They didn't know what they were doing. Oh, my God.
Over exuberant. Yeah, so they blew up some houses or blew up some cars and set some fires. Speaking of fires, do you know California, they're not talking about it, but it is burning like hell out there. It is a living, walking hell.
Yeah.
There are forest fires. There's fires out all over the place.
Well, that doesn't surprise me, because there's no more left-leaning narrative here. You know, the fires have kind of used their usefulness for the left, so they don't want to talk about it anymore. We'll talk about something else altogether.
You can't go outside and breathe the air because of all the soot and smoke, because you've got a valley. I remember, you know, as a young guy flying into, you know, Los Angeles, you know, you'd sit there and you'd come over the mountains and you'd see that valley, and it was just covered with smog at the time, you know, and then you might see the buildings. Until you broke through the smog, you didn't see crap, you know, and the air, you couldn't breathe the air because, you know, it was just
poison.
Bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was terrible.
Well, that's the left. The left doesn't, you know, they're not sending a lot of camera crews down to watch all those migrants swim the Rio Grande anymore, because, well, there aren't any. They're gone. As a matter of fact, they're talking about, they got the money in the big, beautiful bill to finish the wall and even make it better than it was the first time. So I think even the parts of the wall that have already been made are going to be reinforced, because, well, we've seen their weaknesses. You know, there were some people, can you imagine this? There were some people across the Rio Grande in Mexico who actually brought like acetylene torches with them and cut sections of the wall out so that people could walk into the United States. You know, because it was a metal wall, so they just cut through it and made a door and knocked the piece out, and there you have it. Well, I think those days are going to be numbered. So I think they had like 0 people try to cross last month, which is amazing.
Yeah, it is.
You know this guy, Kilmar Abrego Garcia, you know, that Maryland man.
Yeah.
That Maryland man. He came, you know, they brought him back and they said, oh, it was terrible. I was forced to strip, and I was beaten severely, and I was brutalized by the guards. He made the story up that made you want to think that he just had a terrible time. So El Salvador's Bukele, who's the president, he said, "Oh, is that true? Well, we have cameras everywhere, Mr. Garcia, and we're going to send some footage up to show the American people, which a lot of you haven't seen, by the way, because places like MSNBC and CNN have decided, we're not going to air that. That goes against our story. But you may have seen it on Fox or Newsmax, where actually he was gardening, had nice clothes. He was planting flowers. I mean, he was living kind of a nice, peaceful life down in that Seacot prison down there in El Salvador. And Bukele wanted the American people to know that he wasn't beaten or brutalized when he was in that prison. So the guy's a liar. Besides being a human trafficker and a wife beater, he's also a blatant liar. So, but, the media is still going to be on his side. They're still going to call him the Maryland man. So
they do that all the time. Narratives, I guess narratives matter, even if they're wrong.
Yes. It's the left's way of doing things. And, of course, we have you seen the pictures of this guy, Mandami, in New York, eating with his hands? One of the ads he had this is a guy who comes from wealth. And he has lived in this country for a while, and, he's supposed to be civilized. Well, he wanted to appeal to the segment of the voters out there, the illegals who were here, who came from Middle Eastern countries who are used to eating their food with their hands. And a lot of people don't realize that there is a group of people in the world who don't use utensils. They cup their hands and stick their hand in the bowl, and they eat out of their hands. That's how they eat. And so he wanted to appeal to it. So he has an ad or a video of him sitting with a white garment on, eating his food with his hand. This is a guy who's supposed to be here and civilized, and he wants to be your mayor. This guy is scary. I look at him and I see the Manchurian Candidate. He's some guy who is the next Barack Obama.
How many Italian Americans do you think there are?
Oh, there are millions.
Millions?
Yeah.
Enough to make a difference maybe in New York's election?
Absolutely.
Okay, because he posed for a picture flipping off the Christopher Columbus statue.
Well, let me tell you something. There in the last election, the primary a few weeks ago, something like 2 million New York Jews didn't vote.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if those people vote in the general election, then he won't make it. It won't be he'll be knocked out of the race. Just the Jewish vote alone, and they got to be ticked off at the guy. He's so anti-Jew.
Yeah, but you know what? They may go out and vote, and somehow they'll vote for somebody else, or their votes just didn't get counted.
Yeah. Hey, I'm looking at the clock on the wall. We've done it again, my friend. Good to be back. Good to see you again. And I'm looking forward to another interesting week. I think it's going to be one, too.
Yeah, I'm still waiting for a big shoe to fall. I mean, a lot of shoes fall, but there's something lingering out there, and I don't know what it is. And but something, I mean, there's a lot of irons in the fire. I mean, you got the Ukraine going on, the Epstein files going on, the floods going on. Is there going to be another natural disaster that's going on? I mean, the list goes on and on and on.
Yeah, watch the Epstein story, Bill. It's going to be bigger. You watch. It's going to. People are not just going to say, okay, nothing to see there. It could be a backlash that Trump doesn't need. He doesn't need to lose support from his own people, and that may happen.
Well, do you not think that maybe some of this narrative is being pushed out there? Because, again, going back to the top of the story when we started, is the bias out there is 80-20, and of that 80%, you've got 60 to 90% that's all left. So they control the news. They didn't have this power before there was the internet and all the cable networks. And, it used to be just 3 networks, NBC, ABC, and CBS. And then you had a UPN come along and some other stuff, but they weren't news sources. And from when you and I were kids, we had 3 sources for news. And if you didn't get one of them, you might have only got 1 or 2, and that was it.
Yeah.
Now you've got a flood of different opinions out there.
But I got to tell you, they beat stories to death. They get a story, and they keep showing the same footage over and over and over and over. They have lost a lot of their creativity when they put these networks together. It's like they'll loop footage all day long.
Yeah.
And you say, oh, come on, guys, we just saw that video.
Top 3 or 4 stories every 20 minutes. That's it. And then it just recycles, and it's all day. And sometimes you sit there, let's see what the news is. Wait a minute, that was yesterday. No, that was Saturday.
Yeah.
Why is it still running? And it's because I think they gauge the stories like a radio station gauges a song. Okay, this is a good hit piece. Keep it out there. Keep it in the high rotation.
Anyway, I got through the show. I'm suffering from my allergies, as a lot of you are too. It's that time of year, folks. I mean, we know that. And I got mine bothering me, but I'm here. We got through the show, and it's all blue skies and green lights from this point on. Yes.
Yeah.
I'm done, my friend. If you want to take us out of here, be my guest.
I'm going to do it right now. Till we meet again. Hasta la vista, baby. We're out of here.
Wake up on the right side with Right Side Coffee.
Available at rightsideshop.com. This is CRN America.